Chapter 2. The first day of classes at Palmaru dawned under a clear, cool sky. The students, still delighted to reunite after the holidays, gathered in the school's large amphitheater for the welcome speech from the headmaster, Albert Dubois. The excitement in the air was palpable as everyone wondered what new challenges and opportunities the year would bring. Albert Dubois, a man of imposing stature with graying hair, stood on the stage, his gaze kind but firm. He waited for silence to settle over the assembly before speaking. Dear students, welcome to a new year at Palmaru, a year full of promises and challenges. His voice carried through the hall, captivating everyone's attention. Today, I have an important announcement to make, a new rule imposed by the Minister of Sports, Francis Pardon. A nervous murmur spread through the assembly. The students didn't want to relive the anxiety of the past year. Dubois continued, his tone grave. Starting this year, all athletes will be required to practice every sport during the first 3 years of their curriculum. This decision aims to make you more complete and versatile athletes. The news dropped like a bombshell. The students' faces froze in disbelief and worry. Practice all sports? How would they manage that while specializing in their chosen disciplines? Léon, Élodie, and Paul exchanged perplexed looks. The hall filled with whispers and muffled protests. Albert Dubois raised his hand to call for silence. I understand that this may seem difficult, even unfair, but see it as an opportunity to develop new skills and discover hidden talents. After the speech, the students left the amphitheater in small groups, murmuring among themselves about the new rule. Léon, Élodie, and Paul headed to a bench in the shade of a large oak tree, their favorite spot for discussing important matters. Paul, his brows furrowed, was the first to break the silence. I'm not sure my build is suited for tennis, he sighed. Élodie, always pragmatic, shook her head. Léon, thoughtful, looked at his friends. It's a huge challenge, but we've overcome worse. We'll just have to adjust our training and help each other out. Their discussion was interrupted by Leia's arrival, who had also heard the news. Do you really think we can do it? She asked, looking worried. Léon nodded. We don't have a choice, Leia. We'll have to be stronger and more resilient. Paul, despite his initial reservations, straightened up. You're right, Léon. We've always found a way to get through. Why should this time be any different? Élodie gave an encouraging smile. Exactly. We'll form a team and support each other in every discipline. We can do it. The first week of classes passed quickly, and the students were introduced to the various sports they would have to practice. The training sessions were reorganized to include discovery and practice in each discipline. The challenges began immediately. Paul's first attempts at tennis were, to say the least, chaotic. Each swing resulted in the ball being sent far beyond the court's limits. Léon, watching his friend, burst into laughter. It looks like you're trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. Paul shot him an amused look. I think I got a few already. Élodie found the first judo sessions particularly tough. The grips and falls, though interesting, were new to her, accustomed to the strategic finesse of handball. Paul, could you help me with judo? She asked one day, after a series of particularly painful falls. Paul nodded enthusiastically. Of course, Élodie, I'll show you how to use your strength strategically. Leia, for her part, showed great adaptability. She enjoyed discovering the different sports, though each presented a new challenge. She encouraged her friends at every step, bringing a positive energy and constant support. Thanks to her summer training with Léon, she even stood out in football. Léon, Élodie, Paul, and Leia trained together every day, pushing each other to give their best. Every failure was a lesson, every success a shared victory. One evening, after a long day of training, they all gathered in the common room. Léon spoke up, his gaze passing from one friend to another. We did good work today. I know it's not easy, but we must keep pushing and supporting each other. That's how we'll succeed. The first weeks of the new school year were marked by a series of intensive and varied training sessions. The students, now required to practice all sports, found themselves in rather humorous situations. For Paul, in particular, the handball and tennis sessions were a real challenge. One sunny afternoon, Paul headed to the handball court, his broad shoulders and confident stride contrasting with the uncertain look on his face. The other students were already warming up, throwing and catching the ball with an agility that seemed out of reach for Paul. The coach whistled to gather the team and quickly gave instructions. Paul found himself in defense, his imposing stature supposed to intimidate the attackers. But within minutes of the match starting, he realized that the agility required for handball was not his strong suit. Every time he tried to intercept the ball, his movements seemed too slow, often ending up with him tripping or being out of position. One of the opposing attackers, a quick and agile boy, dashed towards the goal, and Paul rushed to stop him. But instead of grabbing the ball, he lost his balance and crashed heavily to the ground. The ball soared over him, straight into the goal. The next day, Paul found himself on the tennis court. At one point, as he tried to return a powerful serve, he lost his grip on the racket, which flew into the air before landing in the nearby bushes. Damien, who was training on the adjacent court, burst out laughing. "Vasseur, you're supposed to hit the ball, not throw the racket, you fool." Paul, red with shame and frustration, retrieved the racket and sighed. "I might be better at knocking down walls than playing tennis," he admitted, returning to the court. However, these difficulties in handball and tennis allowed Paul to discover a new asset on the football field. His raw strength, often a hindrance in other sports, became a significant advantage. During a football training session, Paul found himself playing forward alongside Léon. From the first passes, Léon noticed that Paul's imposing presence intimidated the opposing defenders. Every time he charged towards the goal, the other players hesitated to confront him directly. Léon made a precise pass, and Paul, using his strength, skillfully dribbled around the defenders and shot powerfully. The ball flew through the air and lodged in the top corner of the goal, leaving the goalkeeper stunned. Léon ran over to Paul. "Paul, you're a bulldozer on the football field," he exclaimed, patting him on the shoulder. Paul, surprised but delighted, burst out laughing. "I thought I was only good at knocking down walls." Their football sessions quickly became a regular spectacle, with Paul using his strength and Léon his speed and precision. They formed a formidable, complementary, and effective duo. Their synergy grew with each training session, and they began to devise strategies for upcoming matches. One evening, after a particularly successful training session, the friends gathered in the common room to discuss their progress and the challenges ahead. Leah, sitting next to Léon, was impressed by the stories of Paul's feats on the football field. "I never imagined you'd be so good at football, Paul," she said with a smile. Paul shrugged, a modest smile on his lips. "It's thanks to Léon. He helps me use my strength effectively." The challenges of Pardon's new rules were not insurmountable. They were simply opportunities in disguise.